Do you remember finding toys in your cereal? I remember finding Pokemon cards in mine, these special game tip cards. You might not recognize these because they were released in Canada only. That's why the reverse side is in French. But they're actually a really fascinating 20 card set. And I've purchased some sealed packs to open in this video. But let's talk about the 1999 Kellogg's game tip cards. So a quick search online will tell you that the first toy inside of a food product ever was by Cracker Jack back in 1912. So it's kind of crazy to think that 87 years later there would be a Pikachu inside of my corn pops. Thanks, Cracker Jack. And before we go any further, you might remember the Pokemon cereal. So there were two different Pokemon cereals, Gen 1 and Gen 2. But okay, interestingly, these cards, these game tip cards, did not come in the Pokemon cereal. The Kellogg's Pokemon campaign was actually huge, and it spanned a whole bunch of different products, like, well, cereal, of course, and waffles, Pop-Tarts, and more. And with these products, a bunch of prizes were available, like battle tops, keychains, temporary tattoos, and a syrup pourer, but none of that was available in Canada. We didn't get any of those cool Pokemon food products or toys or prizes or anything like that. Instead, we got these game tip cards in our Kellogg's cereal, and it wasn't even Pokemon cereal. Why? Well, I don't know. Probably because Canada's population is less than that of California, so they didn't really consider us. But hey, thanks for the tip cards. But that's actually good because we're card collectors, not syrup pourer collectors. So this is actually a huge win. So back in the day, cereal companies actually put the toys like inside the cereal. They don't do that anymore. Now they put it outside of the bag, but still in the box. And that's where you would find this pack of Pokemon cards. And because of where these cards were located, kind of squished between the box and the bag, I think they were actually pretty well protected. There wasn't a whole lot of potential for these to get dinged up, and we'll come back to that in just a moment. I should also mention it wasn't only corn pops, also Rice Krispies and Fruit Loops. In each you would get 3 game tip cards, that's one pack. But if you look at the side, there was this token you could cut out. If you sent in 10 tokens, they would send you a complete set of cards, which is kind of funny because if you have 10 tokens, then you already have 30 cards. But they didn't just send you the complete set. They sent it in a special Kellogg's Game Tip Cards binder, which is pretty cool. They are extremely rare and hard to find. I don't think a lot of kids sent in the tokens to get the cards, but I did manage to find a photo. And in addition to the 3 game tip cards, you could also check the inside of the box for a printed certificate for a chance to win a Nintendo 64, a Game Boy Color, Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Yellow, and a bunch of other cool prizes. Now let's take a look at the cards. As you can tell, these aren't TCG cards and they're barely collectible as it is. The design though and overall effort put into these is really just negligible. Each card has a game tip, either for Pokemon Snap or for the original games Red, Blue, and Yellow. And the game tips are okay, I guess, like on Pidgey, for example. It's for Pokemon Snap. And it says you can earn more points by getting multiple Pidgey in one shot while they're using an attack. This might seem like a good tip to the marketing team at Kellogg Canada, but it's explained within the first few minutes of the game, so it's kind of redundant. But some tips are actually pretty good, I guess, like Charmander, for example. The tip says, look for a trainer where Route 25 bends to the right to go to the Sea Cottage. He'll hand over a Charmander. So that's pretty good. It gives you a specific location, somewhere to go, and a clear reward. I guess that's all right. And so these cards don't have any kind of set number on them. They do have a Pokédex number, but that doesn't tell you that there are only 20 cards in the set, and actually I don't think it was ever referred to as a set back then. But yeah, there were only 20 cards and 20 Pokemon, so let's go over them really quick. We have Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, Pidgey, Pikachu, Clefairy, Jigglypuff, Meowth, Psyduck, Growlithe, Poliwag, Geodude, Slowpoke, Doduo, Grimer, Cubone, Horsey, Jinx, Eevee, and Snorlax. The card's overall design isn't really that bad though. We have the logo at the top, the Pokemon in the center, along with its name and Pokédex number, and of course the game tip. Oh, and they have different colored backgrounds. For example, Bulbasaur gets a yellow background, Charmander gets a green one, but there's also purple, orange, and blue. But I couldn't find any pattern here. I'm pretty sure they're just randomly assigned. And interestingly, the copyright at the bottom says 1999 Nintendo, but not Game Freak. I'm not an expert here, so I don't know why they wouldn't include Game Freak. And if you flip the card over, you'll be met with the exact same design, but in French, because French is Canada's second language. Oh, and I should mention, these cards are really, really thin. I doubt these were printed in the same factory as Wizards of the Coast cards. They were probably just printed in some cheap Canadian facility. They are super thin, and they don't have the black graphene layer in them, which means they're gonna bend and crease very easily. And if you shine a light, it's gonna go right through. Oh, and the corners aren't rounded, they're square cut, like sports cards. So that means they are gonna be a little bit harder to grade, especially if you're digging them out of your old Canadian collection from 20-something years ago. Oh, and speaking of grading, let's talk about that. So as of this video, there are only 51 of these cards graded by PSA. I'll drop a link to the population report in the description if you want to check that out for yourself. And out of these 51 graded Kellogg's game tip cards, there are absolutely 0 at a Gem Mint 10. That's right, none of these have ever been graded a 10. So I know 51 is a pretty small sample size, but I still would have expected like maybe 1 or 2 Gem Mint 10s. So PSA looks at the surface, the edges, the corners, and the centering of a card when grading them. And looking at these game tip cards, I'm gonna say the corners are probably their greatest weakness. They are square cut, so they're very easy to damage, but also, like I said earlier, the cardstock is extremely thin. So these might actually be pretty tough to grade. And looking at prices on eBay, these are very affordable. They are definitely not expensive. The starters, Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle, as well as Pikachu, and then Eevee and Snorlax are a little bit more expensive. They sit at around $10 to $15 Canadian, but a sealed pack is around $15 Canadian, so why not just buy sealed packs? The rest of them, the non-starters, the non-Eevee and the non-Snorlax, they're just a couple bucks, like $3 or $4 Canadian. And since there are 3 cards per pack, you can see 2 of the 3 cards. And whichever one is sandwiched in the middle is a mystery, which is kind of cool, I guess. I tried shining a light through them to see if I could identify the middle card, but I couldn't quite make it out. This is a cheap hit of Canadian 90s kid nostalgia, and I really do recommend picking up a pack of these on eBay or something, because they're just really fun to see again after all this time. And you can complete the 20 card set for under $100 Canadian, maybe even 50 if you get lucky with a couple packs or some auctions. I remember pulling these out of my cereal box when I was a little kid. That is where these 3 came from. I asked all my friends, but no one remembers these. So if you do remember these, please let me know in the comments. Let's talk about it. Thank you for watching.